Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. We begin with Donald Trump. The US president is playing hot and cold with tariffs again. Is it a deal? Is it a delay? Or is it just more taco diplomacy? How are talks with India shaping up? Could a US-India trade deal be just hours away? We're tracking it moment by moment. Also in focus, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu endorses Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize because apparently nominations are the new foreign policy, even if they don't get you the prize. Elon Musk has a choice to make, politics or business, because as things stand, his politics is bleeding his business. In Russia, a minister is fired, then found dead. Officially, it's a suicide, but nothing is ever simple in Putin's Russia. Plus, why the Trump administration is under fire over the Epstein files, how Chinese weapons are showing up in conflicts around the globe, why Kenya has erupted again with protests turning deadly, leaving 11 people dead and hundreds arrested. And Big Pharma wants a slice of India's weight loss market. But is this about health or just another billion-dollar race? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Iran refutes US President Donald Trump's claim, says it has not made any request for talks with Washington. Trump claims that Tehran is keen to resume nuclear talks after last month's war. On the 13th of June, Israel attacked Iran. It was just days before a planned meeting between Tehran and Washington. Since then, the nuclear talks have stalled. Germany summons a Chinese ambassador, claims Beijing targeted its plane with a laser over the Red Sea. The aircraft was participating in a European Union-led mission, which aims to protect international sea routes. The German plane aborted its mission after the encounter and returned to its base in Djibouti. French President Emmanuel Macron begins his three-day state visit to the UK. It's the first one by a European head of state since Brexit in 2020. Macron is also the first French president to visit the UK since Nicolas Sarkozy in 2008. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is keen to reset ties with the EU after years of tension over Brexit. Thailand drops its casino legalization plans. It was a flagship project of the ruling party. The aim was to legalize casinos and boost Thailand's economy, but the ruling party, which now has a razor-thin parliamentary majority, says the time is not right. And Greece orders a partial closure of its top monument, the Acropolis. It is to protect the visitors from soaring temperatures. Greece is currently battling a 4-day heat wave. It is the second one to grip the country since late June. The Acropolis draws thousands of visitors every day.
Tariffs go into effect August 1st, but the president is setting the rates.
Remember the taco craze? It was coined by people in the US media. They said Donald Trump always chickens out. Trump always chickens out, TACO. Well, he's done it again. President Trump's tariffs were supposed to kick in tomorrow on the 9th of July, but he has decided to delay it. The new deadline is the 1st of August, and even that is not certain. Trump says the new deadline is not 100% firm.
I would say firm. No, I would say firm, but not 100% firm. If they call up and they say, would like to do something a different way, we're going to be open to that. But essentially, that's the way it is right now, yeah.
He later backtracked on that. Trump just posted on social media saying the deadline was final, no more extensions. But flip-flops aside, what exactly happened? Trump had announced his reciprocal tariffs in the month of April. Immediately, there was a meltdown. The U.S. stock market lost $3 trillion in value. The U.S. bond market turned volatile. So within days, President Trump paused the tariffs. He delayed them by 90 days. The idea was to strike 90 trade deals in those 90 days, 90. And how many did he strike? Just 2, with Britain and Vietnam. So frankly, he had no option but to delay the tariffs because he needs more time to make deals, and Trump knows this. He is trying to nudge world leaders with letters. He's reached out to 14 countries. All of them have received signed letters from the US president. And what do they say? Well, you have to listen to this. We invite you to participate in the extraordinary economy of the United States, the #1 economy in the world by far. Every letter says the same thing. The only difference is the tariff rate. Out of the 14 countries, some have a new rate. Cambodia's rate has been reduced. It was 49% in April, now it is 36%. Bangladesh is down from 37% to 35%. Malaysia has gone up slightly from 24 to 25%. Laos is down from 48% to 40%. And Myanmar is also down from 44% to 40%. It's not clear why these rates have been revised. As always, the White House has given no explanation. But here's what they did say, that President Trump's phone is buzzing all the time. Why? Listen to this.
This administration is working hard to ensure those deals are in the best interest of the American people. And this delay, again, is in the best interest of the American people. And you all will continue to see these letters released on the President's Truth Social, and we will see you all later. Thank you, guys.
I'm afraid this does not add up. The White House says leaders are hitting up Trump's phones. They're begging him to strike a deal. We will ignore the poor choice of words. But here's a bigger question. If everyone is begging Trump, why is he writing letters to them? Why is he reaching out if everyone is calling him? Like I said, it does not add up. These letters seem like a typical Trump tactic, performative, not effective. But they will have 2 knock-on effects. Number 1, they reveal Trump's desperation. These are highly complicated negotiations. Billions of dollars in trade are at stake. Sometimes these negotiations take years to complete, but Trump wants them done in days. Simply put, it is not practical. Plus, countries have understood Trump's strategy. His initial announcement had shock and awe, but now that is gone. They realize that Trump is reluctant to impose these tariffs. He is hoping to use them as a negotiating tool. But even that could have consequences, which is the second effect. These actions are turning US allies against Trump. Just look at who is getting these letters from Donald Trump. Japan, South Korea, Thailand, Indonesia, these are all key partners of the United States. Some of them are treaty allies. But Trump is sending them threatening letters, and he's posting them on social media. In fact, consider the letter to Japan. Look at the language that Trump used. Please understand that these tariffs are necessary to correct years of Japan's tariff and non-tariff policies, causing unsustainable trade deficits. This deficit is a major threat to our economy and indeed our national security. This is not diplomacy. This is cheap theater, and it is alienating US allies. Japan's Prime Minister called this announcement regrettable. He vowed to not make easy concessions.
It is deeply regrettable that the U.S. government has announced a further increase in tariffs, in addition to the rates already imposed. We, as the government of Japan, have avoided making easy concessions and have pursued robust talks, seeking what we ought to seek and defending what we ought to defend.
Trump is playing to his base, but his actions will have major consequences. The US president needs to understand the truth about his tariffs. They are not as smart as he thinks they are, but they're more damaging than he realizes they are. 10 p.m. later tonight, that's what we're focused on. Reports say there could be a big announcement around that time. An announcement on what? A US-India trade deal. Not a full-fledged agreement, more of a mini deal. Multiple reports talk about the same 10 p.m. deadline. We haven't independently confirmed these. So as things stand, there is just one thing to do. Wait. President Donald Trump also spoke about the possibility of a deal with India. He said it could be signed soon.
Now we've made a deal with United Kingdom. We've made a deal with China. We've made a deal. We're close to making a deal with India. Others we met with, and we don't think we're going to be able to make a deal. So we just send them a letter. If you want to play ball, you have to. This is what you have to pay.
There's been no shortage of engagement. An Indian negotiating team visited the US last week. It was their second trip in recent months. A team from the US also visited India twice. So negotiations have been happening behind the scenes. The question is, will there be a breakthrough? Until yesterday, India had to keep a deadline in mind, and that deadline was midnight today. Because tomorrow, the tariffs were supposed to kick in, the 9th of July. Indian exports would have faced 26% tariffs, but yesterday Trump delayed those. His new deadline is the 1st of August. So will India use this pause to carry out more negotiations, or will they go ahead with the existing timeline? The Commerce Minister recently ruled out any deadline pressure. He said India would discuss on its own terms.
भारत कभी कोई ट्रेड डील डेडलाइन या समय सीमा के आधार पर कभी नहीं करते। जब डील अच्छी बन जाए, पूरी तरीके से पक जाए और देश हित में हो, तब उसको हम स्वीकार करें।
So India will discuss on its own terms. And what are those terms? Well, India has two main priorities. The first is to protect its primary sectors. I'm talking about agriculture and dairy. Trump wants to sell American farm goods in Indian markets like soybeans, corn and milk. But cheap US imports would hurt Indian farmers. Almost half of all Indians work in the agriculture sector. So India is looking to keep agriculture and dairy off the table. That is priority number one. The second is to secure access to lucrative markets. For example, garments and electronics. If the tariffs are low, Indian exports will become cheaper, meaning more companies will set up factories in India. These are India's two main priorities. Reports say agriculture will likely be kept out of the mini deal. It will likely be dealt with later on. In the meantime, India needs to avoid those tariffs because we have a short window here, a short window to capitalize. India faces lesser tariffs than some of its competitors. Our rate is 26%. Bangladesh faces 35% tariffs. Thailand faces 36%. Cambodia also faces 36%. And Vietnam, despite a trade deal with the Americans, faces 20% tariffs. Now, India is a much bigger economy than all these countries, but our strategies are the same. Companies will move production out of China, and when they do, we want to capitalize. We want those factories in our country. That is the strategy. And in that context, India could benefit here. If we secure lower tariffs, our exports will become cheaper. If our exports become cheaper, more companies will invest in India. Of course, there is a trade-off. Trump will not reduce tariffs out of goodwill. He needs something in return. Like I mentioned, he wants to sell farm goods in India. So it's a question of how far Delhi can go. Last time around, we missed the bus. Trump's trade war led to an exodus from China. But most of those companies went to Southeast Asia. They did not come to India. I've got some numbers for you. In fact, from 2018 to 2019, 56 companies left China. And where did they go? 26 of them went to Vietnam, 11 went to Taiwan, and 8 went to Mexico. Guess how many of these companies came to India? Only 3. This time, a similar window has opened up. India was among the first to start negotiations with Donald Trump, yet a full trade deal eludes us. If India can secure lower tariffs, there is much to gain. At the same time, we should be mindful of the long term. The US already makes up 18% of India's total exports. Do we want to increase that dependence on the Americans? Vietnam did, and they're paying for it. US exports make up a third of Vietnam's GDP. As a result, they had to rush for a deal. They ended up dropping all tariffs on American goods, meaning zero tariffs on US imports in Vietnam. A bigger economy like India cannot afford that. Yes, we need the American market, but we also need diversity. Talks are underway with the European Union. Chances are the negotiations with Canada will also be revived. So India should focus on all these markets because the US has revealed itself to be unreliable. Any trade deal should account for that.
The letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee, it's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved.
The first Nobel Peace Prize was handed out in the year 1901. It was meant for people above politics, peacemakers, bridge builders, giants of diplomacy. And it was not supposed to be a popularity contest. But in 2025, one man is turning it into that. I'm talking about Donald Trump. He wants the Nobel Prize. He keeps saying it. So those who want to win his favor have found a new tactic. They're endorsing Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. The latest one to join the chorus is Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. Listen to what he said.
He forged the Abraham Accords. He's forging peace as we speak in one country and one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming from you in particular, this is very meaningful. Thank you very much, baby.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. It's a great honor.
Benjamin Netanyahu was at the White House yesterday. It's his first visit since the war with Iran. On the agenda was a ceasefire in Gaza. But before the meeting, the Israeli Prime Minister sprung a surprise, a nomination letter for Trump, nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump was caught off guard, but he seemed visibly pleased.
I want to express the appreciation and admiration, not only of all Israelis, but of the Jewish people, and many, many admirers around the world for your leadership of the free world, your leadership of a just cause, and the pursuit of peace and security, which you are leading in many lands, but now especially in the Middle East. We have great opportunities.
But Netanyahu is not the first to do this. Pakistan beat him to it. They were the first to nominate Trump for the Peace Prize. It was right before the US bombed Iran. So it was quite the foot in the mouth moment for Islamabad. Thankfully, they're used to it. And now Netanyahu has followed suit. These nominations raise a few questions, though. Will Donald Trump get the Nobel Peace Prize? Why does he want it? Can his allies push the needle, or are they just using this nomination to curry favor? To answer these questions, let's go back in time. The year was 2009. Barack Obama had just taken office as US President, and he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. For what? Apparently his efforts to strengthen international diplomacy. It was quite ill-deserved. The world slammed it and moved on, but Donald Trump did not. He could not move on. He cannot seem to forget Obama's Nobel. That moment lives rent-free in his mind.
He got elected and they announced he's getting the Nobel Prize. I got elected in a much bigger, better, crazier election. But they gave him the Nobel Prize. Ladies and gentlemen, the Nobel Prize will be won by Barack Hussein Obama.
Trump became president for the first time in 2017, and since then he's been talking about the Peace Prize at rallies and interviews on his Truth Social platform. He keeps bringing it up. The implication is always the same. Trump stopped wars, Trump brokered peace, Trump built bridges, yet the world refuses to clap loud enough. The injustice in his mind is unbearable. And let's not pretend this is some altruistic pursuit. Trump equates success with accolades. The bigger, the better. And the Nobel Peace Prize fits neatly into that. So it's not about the peace. It's only about the prize. And each time he doesn't get it, he seems to want it more. So will he get it this time? Well, we don't know. And these nominations don't really help. You see, getting nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize is not tough, especially if you know the right people. Here's what the rules say. A lot of people can nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize, including heads of state, national lawmakers, professors of certain disciplines, members of international courts, former recipients, and peace institutes. They can all submit nominations. So both Pakistan and Netanyahu qualify. And it's not like Trump has not been nominated before. In 2020, he was nominated by a Norwegian MP. Before that, there was a Japanese official who pushed his name. But none of these nominations led to a win. Most were not even seriously considered. And that's because of the process in which this works, the way this works. Every year, the Nobel Committee receives anywhere between 250 to 400 nominations every year. Up to 400 nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize. Last year, 286 candidates were nominated. Some of them were serious, some just symbolic. After the nomination deadline, a 5-member committee makes a shortlist. They draft detailed reports, and then for months, this committee deliberates. They vote. And finally, a winner is announced in the month of October. The whole process is a secret. The names of nominees are not publicly released for 50 years. The committee usually does not care about the buzz, and they do not appreciate public lobbying. But Donald Trump does not care about any of that. He is lobbying hard. In Ukraine, he promised to end the war within 24 hours of taking office. It's been almost 200 days. The war is still raging on. In Gaza, he's issued vague statements, but the actual progress came from indirect talks. In India and Pakistan, it was a bilateral discussion. Pakistan asked India for a ceasefire, and India agreed. Yet Trump claims that he was the one who stopped a nuclear war.
Stopped a lot of fights. I think a very big one, frankly, a very, very big one was India and Pakistan. And we stopped that over trade. We're dealing with India and we're dealing with Pakistan, and we say we're not going to be dealing with you at all if you're going to fight. And they were maybe at a nuclear stage. They're both, nuclear powers. And I think stopping that was very important.
Basically, the US president is seizing on global developments to burnish his peacemaker brand. And his allies know that. So they're using flattery and useless nominations for favors. The fact is, neither Netanyahu nor Pakistan can help Trump win the Nobel. For our next story, let me start with a few headlines. They are from May 20th. That's when Elon Musk moved away from the US government. He said he was taking a step back. He would spend a lot less on politics and a lot more on his company Tesla. After all, being a CEO was his day job. Nearly 2 months later, Musk has not stepped back from politics. He has dived deeper into it. Elon Musk is launching his own political party. It is called the America Party, and that announcement is now bleeding his company Tesla. On Monday, Tesla's stock plummeted by nearly 7%. It erased $79 billion from the company's market value, $79 billion in one single day. That's nearly the GDP of Sri Lanka, gone in 24 hours. Musk's personal stake took a $15 billion hit. He's still the richest man in the world, but these developments are a sign. Tesla investors are not just concerned, they are furious. Listen to this.
Musk is so synonymous with both the Tesla brand and his other businesses, SpaceX in particular, that I think it would be hard to. There's obviously an issue of control as well. If it wasn't Doge and some of the other things, some of the side businesses, then it's probably not going to be this.
And this is not the first time. Last year, Elon Musk backed Donald Trump. He was the biggest donor for Trump's campaign. He endorsed the US president, and that led to a massive consumer backlash. Sales dropped in the United States. There were protests outside Tesla dealerships. There was brand damage in Europe. In the second quarter of 2025, sales fell by almost 14%, mostly because of Elon Musk's politics. In early June, Trump and Musk fought for the first time, and Tesla lost about $150 billion in market value. And that is not all. A new report says Tesla has mounting troubles in China too. Until now, the company has done well in China, but of late it is falling behind. It is facing increasing competition from other automakers, especially Chinese manufacturers. That's because of its aging lineup. Tesla's robo-taxi release in Texas was also lackluster. It drew mixed reactions from locals and investors.
I just feel like there have been so many accidents when it comes to like Teslas and stuff like that are also self-driving that I feel like it'll probably have the same issues. I don't know how safe they are.
They're driving around. They seem to be working. They stop at traffic lights. They let you know. I need to feel how comfortable I feel in it. Do I feel safe?
Now, Elon Musk has long been a man of many hats. He has many companies. He juggles multiple roles. But politics is not rocket science. It is more than that. Launching a political party is not like launching a new product line. And what's worse, it takes up a lot of time. If the America Party takes off, will Elon Musk have the bandwidth to run Tesla? That's the question most investors are asking. They want Musk to clarify his political ambitions. Technically, Tesla still has a board of directors. Elon Musk answers to them. But in reality, Tesla's board has often behaved like a Musk fan club. They cheer for him more than they steer him. But now shareholders want accountability. There's growing pressure to link Musk's pay to the time he actually spends running Tesla. Some analysts suggest creating an oversight committee, a group to monitor Elon Musk's extracurriculars to see if they're interfering with his duties as CEO. Because let's be real here, Tesla's success has always been linked to Musk's presence. But what happens when he's present everywhere but at Tesla? I guess it all boils down to one question. What does Elon Musk want? Does he still see Tesla as the crown jewel of his empire? Or has politics seduced him away? And as he answers this, he must remember something very basic. Musk may see himself as a disruptor, but disruption without any goal is just destruction. Tesla does not need a new party. It needs a present CEO. Musk may sell the world on self-driving cars, but even autopilot needs oversight. It's another Moscow mystery, a senior minister, a sudden sacking, a looming criminal case, and an apparent suicide. That too inside a car in an elite Moscow suburb. It's got all the makings of a thriller, but this is real life. The victim is a man named Roman Starovoyt. Until recently, he served as Russia's transport minister, but on Monday morning, he was fired. The Kremlin announced that President Putin had removed him from office. Reason? None given. Hours later, the news of his death came in. Officials say Starovoyt was found dead inside his car. He apparently had a bullet wound. As things stand, authorities are treating it as a suicide. They believe Starovoyt turned the gun on himself, and not just any gun. This gun was awarded to him by the Kremlin. I know it sounds all sorts of fishy. This man had just been minister for a year. He was sacked out of the blue. No explanation was given, and hours later he winds up dead. Surely there is something more than meets the eye. Well, there is. Before being transport minister, Starovoyt was a governor. Guess where? In the Russian province of Kursk, the same province that was invaded by Ukraine. He was governor of Kursk for 6 years. In May 2024, he was promoted to transport minister, and in the month of August, Ukraine invaded Kursk. They went on to hold vast swathes of Russian land. Moscow took months to retake this area. They finally completed the operation in April 2025. April this year, that's when Moscow took complete control of Kursk. Naturally, this was embarrassing for Russia. A, they did not see the attack coming, and B, when it came, they could not stop it. So Moscow looked for accountability. And soon they found a probable cause. The government had set aside funds to strengthen the border with Ukraine. And out of this money, out of these funds, $12 million had been swindled. Guess who was governor during the scam? The same Roman Starovoyt. His successor has already been arrested. The rumor was that the case would eventually reach Starovoyt, that he could possibly be implicated as well. If true, that would explain the sudden sacking. It may even explain his alleged suicide. Maybe he did not want to face the law. Maybe he was ashamed of being exposed. We will let the authorities draw the final conclusion. But then again, this is Russia, where top officials die, especially like this. When they die, there is speculation. Was the Kremlin involved in some way? Had the official turned on President Putin? Was he going to turn on the regime? These questions tend to come up, and this case is no different. The Kremlin says it was shocked to hear the news, but refused to join the speculation.
Of course, President Vladimir Putin was immediately briefed about it. Such kind of information is always tragic and sad. It cannot but shock normal people. Naturally, it shocked us as well. Now, an investigation is underway. And this investigation will answer all the questions. While it is in process, it is possible to discuss, but representatives of media outlets, political analysts can do so, but it is inappropriate for us.
It's business as usual in Moscow. Putin had nominated Starovoyt's successor on Monday. He was confirmed by the Russian parliament yesterday. His name is Andrei Nikitin, and he too is a former governor. Whatever happens in the probe, do not expect the speculation to end, because this death is not isolated. It is the third of its kind in 6 months. The first was in early February. A former police officer fell from a window. At the time, he was working for Russia's anti-monopoly agency. The second death was last week. An oil executive also fell from a window. Both these incidents were quite similar. Fell from a window, left a note, and declared a case of suicide. In Starovoyt's case, no such note was found, yet the implication is the same, that there was some sort of foul play. And this is not unheard of in Russia. Several Russian officials and executives have been found dead in mysterious circumstances. Some have been poisoned, some have fallen out of the windows and balconies. So the premise itself is not implausible. The question is, will there be a transparent investigation, or will this be one of those classic Moscow mysteries? Many questions, no answers. Before Donald Trump took office, for a second term as US president, he made a lot of promises. He wanted to end the Russia-Ukraine war on day one. He wanted to, quote-unquote, tariff the hell out of countries. That's what he said. And he wanted to release the Epstein files. But now, like most of his other promises, the last one has also fallen flat. Jeffrey Epstein was a sex offender. He died in a prison cell awaiting trial in 2019. It has been 6 years since, but public obsession has refused to die down, and now the Trump administration has given it some cold water treatment. They say no more files related to Epstein's sex trafficking probe will be released. And they affirm previous conclusions. They say that Epstein did take his own life and that he did not have a so-called client list, a list that could implicate his high-profile associates. No such list. That's what the government is saying. Unsurprisingly, Trump supporters are not taking this well. Here's a report.
In 2019, sex offender Jeffrey Epstein died in a New York prison cell, awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. In the 6 years since his death, the Epstein case has become a public obsession, especially among Donald Trump supporters in the US. Conspiracy theories have been rife. People have suggested that Epstein was murdered to stop him from naming top government officials, celebrities, and business tycoons who may have been involved. people have grown frustrated, demanding a release of the so-called Epstein files that could implicate the high-profile associates of the disgraced financier. So much so that while campaigning last year, President Donald Trump promised to release the files. For months now, Attorney General Pam Bondi has also made similar promises. She has drummed up anticipation over the files. But on Monday, she undercut her own statements. The U.S. Department of Justice and FBI have made the keenly awaited announcement and disappointed most people by contradicting long-held theories. They have concluded that Epstein did take his own life and that he did not have a so-called client list. They have released a 2-page memo saying that investigators found no incriminating list of clients and no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent people. Basically, they affirmed conclusions that were already reached by investigators years ago.
The Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death, and they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption, but they committed to an exhaustive investigation.
But the memo was met with disbelief from many Trump supporters. Critics call it a shameful cover-up to protect the most heinous elites. This frustration comes after contradictory statements from Bondi in February, when she said that the Epstein client list was sitting on her desk for review. The issue was back in the spotlight last month, when Trump had a public spat with his former advisor and tech billionaire Elon Musk. Musk claimed that Trump appears in the unreleased Epstein files, which is why the administration has not released them. He did not back this with evidence. The White House rubbished the claim, and the post was later deleted by Musk. However, it is public knowledge that Trump and Epstein had crossed paths over the years. They went around in similar wealthy social circles in New York and Florida. In 2002, Trump acknowledged this in an interview. He said that he had known Epstein for 15 years and called him a terrific guy who was a lot of fun to be with. He added that it is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Trump has regularly talked about the Epstein files, and since he returned to office, his supporters have hyped up the case, expecting him to release the so-called client list. But like with most of Trump's promises, this too has fallen flat.
The Ukraine war is known as the world's first drone war, and the footage says it all. Drones zipping over trenches, quadcopters dropping grenades, explosives flying straight into tank hatches. Military analysts called it a turning point, a new era of warfare. Ukraine was improvising with consumer drones. It cut deals with European suppliers, but one question lingered. Where was Russia getting its drones? A new investigation has just dropped the answer. It is China. Behind this drone surge is a company called Aerohit, a relatively obscure Russian company, but now it churns out thousands of first-person view drones every month. And reports point to a collaboration with a Chinese company, a company called Hotel Robotics. This is a Chinese civilian drone manufacturer. Hotel says it stopped selling to Russia in 2022. Yet internal documents suggest otherwise. Russian engineers were still talking to Hotel staff into 2025. Is this illegal under sanctions? Yes, it is. But enforcement is tricky, especially because of intermediaries. Some components come through Malaysia, some come through Dubai, others via shell companies based in Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan. But despite restrictions, Chinese companies continue selling parts. And it is not just the war in Ukraine. Another report suggests that Chinese weapons are showing up in Tehran. Iran fought a 12-day war with Israel last month. It was left with a depleted arsenal. So Beijing is filling that gap now. It is sending surface-to-air missile batteries to Tehran. These are not cutting-edge defense systems, but they don't need to be. For Iran, the goal is to patch up its air defenses, and China is helping in that process. How is Iran paying for it? Well, reports suggest it is selling oil in exchange for weapons. So Ukraine and Iran. Chinese weapons have shown up in two war zones. But if you zoom out, you will realize that they're almost everywhere. In Gaza, Chinese anti-tank missiles were spotted. In Syria and Libya, Chinese-made anti-aircraft weapons were seen with rebel groups. In Africa, you'll find Chinese hardware in Chad and Sudan. In Myanmar, both the junta and the rebels use Chinese rifles. So in some conflicts, China is supplying both sides. And how do they get away with it? Through plausible deniability. Officially, Beijing insists on a strict policy of non-interference, but its defense exporters follow a simpler rule. If you pay us, we will deliver. And that appeals to authoritarian regimes and to cash-strapped governments. Most of these deliveries are discreet, either via third-party dealers or shell companies. But here's a million-dollar question. Are these weapons any good? That depends on who you ask. China often provides what it calls export variants. These are less advanced versions of its main weapons. They're cheap and abundant. But reliability is a common complaint. There have been issues with these Chinese weapons. Nigerian troops have seen their Chinese tanks break down. In some cases, clients have gone back to the Russians or even the West. But the arms race is not just about firepower, it is also about access. And China is quick at providing that. On paper, China is the fourth largest arms exporter in the world. Fourth after the US, Russia, and France. Beijing may claim that it stays out of wars, but its weapons keep showing up in all of them. So China may not be fighting on the front lines, but in some cases, it is arming both sides. And for China, that is the real strategy. Stay clean on paper, get others to dirty their hands. It's time the world wakes up to this. For our next story, let's shift focus to East Africa, where Kenya has been hit by another wave of bloody protests. Hundreds took to the streets yesterday. Police opened fire on demonstrators. At least 11 people were killed and more than 500 arrested. This protest comes after several others in recent weeks. Like on June 25th, when Kenya was rocked by nationwide protests, and at least 19 people were killed. So why is anger mounting in the country, and how has President William Ruto responded? Here's a report.
Saba Saba means 7-7 in Kiswahili. It refers to July 7th in 1990, when Kenyans demanded a return to multi-party democracy. They marched to shun years of autocratic rule by then-President Daniel Arap Moi. Since then, every year, Kenyans hold a rally on July 7th, just as they did yesterday. But this year, the protest turned into a wider call for the current president, William Ruto, to resign. Hundreds of Kenyans took to the streets. They walked on heavily barricaded roads leading to key government sites, including the president's official residence, State House, and the Kenyan Parliament. Soon clashes broke out across the country, especially in capital Nairobi. Demonstrators lit fires and attempted to breach the police cordons. The police responded by firing live rounds, water cannons, and tear gas at the protesters. They say 52 officers and 11 civilians were injured in the violence. But according to the state-run Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights, the police used excessive force. At least 11 people were killed nationwide and over 550 people were arrested. The police reportedly operated in plainclothes and unmarked vehicles, and collaborated with armed criminal gangs. As per the report, they even abducted at least 2 protesters. While most are blaming the police, some residents blame young Kenyans for engaging in looting and violence under the garb of demonstrations.
Some goon, because Some goons, because they are not Gen Z protesters, they are goons. They invaded our shop, and by the way, we have lost so many things. We lost cash, phones, a lot of them amounting to very huge amounts.
Phones, a lot of them, amounting to very huge amounts.
We found that the entrance was broken into. Then they hit the window glass trying to go through the windows but did not manage it. So they came back to the entrance and got in, looting all the electronics.
But protesters accuse the authorities of paying armed vandals to discredit their movement, and they remain undeterred.
The reason we are protesting is because the government we are still trying to get this government so that they can listen to the people, and nobody's listening. So that's why you're protesting. Extradition, killing, you can see corruption in the government, and nobody's in any.
Last year, nationwide anti-government protests over a tax bill rocked Kenya. Dozens of people lost their lives. And the country hasn't been the same since. Amid economic turmoil, rising police violence, unemployment, and corruption scandals, young Kenyans have regularly taken to the streets. In fact, only a few days ago, on the 25th of June, at least 19 people were killed in a day of nationwide protests that were being held to honor those who lost their lives in last year's anti-tax protests. But President Ruto continues to remain in denial. He has repeatedly supported the police, despite calls for justice amid mounting cases of police brutality. The Ruto government has called the protesters criminals, terrorists, and accused them of trying to raise a coup. But despite the government crackdown, the protesters remain defiant. As the situation continues to spiral, question is, who will blink first?
In India, a quiet battle is unfolding. And this is the battleground, the weight loss drug market. Over the past 4 years, it has grown 5-fold. Today, it stands at 6.28 billion rupees, which is some 73 million US dollars. So there is a mad rush for the crown. And leading the race are two rivals, two global pharma giants, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. Eli Lilly is the maker of the blockbuster drug Mounjaro. This is a weekly injectable drug for obesity and type 2 diabetes. It is prescription only and it costs about 14 to 18,000 rupees per month. Then there is Novo Nordisk. This is the maker of the popular jabs Ozempic and Wegovy. Ozempic is not available in India, but Wegovy is. This is also a weekly injection. It targets weight loss and obesity. It is also available only by prescription. And it costs about 17 to 26,000 rupees per month. Now, to most Indians, the prices may sound steep, but they haven't hurt sales. Eli Lilly's Mounjaro launched in late March. From then on until May, more than 81,000 units were sold in India. Then in June, sales skyrocketed with about 88,000 units sold. That sales worth about 260 million rupees, which is 3 million US dollars. Meanwhile, Wegovy launched in late June, and in a matter of days, Nordisk has sold about 1,800 units already. That's about 25 million rupees, or more than 290,000 US dollars in sales. And none of this is surprising. Demand is rising at a fast clip in India, and people are willing to try new weight loss drugs. You see, obesity drugs have been famous in India for years now, but older agents targeted fat absorption. And this can be a slow process. Now there is a new game changer called GLP-1. GLP-1 molecules are hormones. They release after we consume food. They help regulate blood sugar. They tell the brain when to make us feel full. And doctors have discovered that this hormone can be the key to weight loss. So the new age weight loss drugs have these molecules. They can suppress appetite and they help people lose weight quickly. For instance, Mounjaro has tirzepatide. This drug has GLP-1. Tirzepatide has captured 8% of the market in India. It is valued at 500 million rupees. Meanwhile, Wegovy has semaglutide, again a GLP-1 drug. Semaglutide dominates the Indian market with 2/3 share. It is valued at over 4 billion rupees, which is huge because it doesn't just include the new injection Wegovy, it also includes oral pills by the same maker. And these pills have been available in India since 2022. So together, the two drugs, semaglutide and tirzepatide, command 75% of India's weight loss market, and the two pharma giants, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, have captured the biggest market share. But maybe not for too long, because this race is heating up. Next year, semaglutide will lose its patent protection in India. And once the patent expires, generic drug makers will jump in. They could produce cheaper versions of these drugs and capture bigger chunks of the market. This could be good news for customers, but it is terrible for the current frontrunners because to them, India is a gold mine. And I will give you 3 reasons why. First, this is the world's most populous nation. We have a lot of people. Secondly, it is one of the top 3 countries with high obesity rates. And thirdly, India is a crucial part of the global weight loss market, which is expected to reach $100 billion by 2030. So now warning bells are ringing. Smaller players are all set to enter this market and big pharma is hustling. Novo Nordisk has rushed to launch Wegovy and now it is scrambling to introduce the showstopper, Ozempic. Ozempic could soon be introduced in the Indian market, probably before the floodgates open. Either way, the battlefield is shifting. And 1 year from now, India's weight loss market could look very different. Pharma big shots must prepare themselves. They will have to fight on many fronts because the battle is about to enter a new phase. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. An agricultural drone rescues stranded boys in a flooded river in Vietnam. Firefighters struggle to contain wildfires in Catalonia, and Spain's bull running festival leaves 7 people injured on day 2. Finally, we are taking you back in history on this day. In 1497, Portuguese sailor Vasco da Gama set sail from Portugal in search of a sea passage to India. A year later, he landed on India's southern coast. While Vasco da Gama's goal was to buy Indian spices, his voyage triggered a chain of events, one that led to centuries of colonialism in India. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow.
Magdalena, sí, en Catena,